We're going to go ahead and get started and call the February 14th Curriculum Committee of the School Board meeting to order. Is there any public comment on our agenda items? No? All right, we'll just jump right into new business. I'll turn it over to Ms. Grigaitis.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody, and welcome. This evening we have a few things on our agenda that we are going to be talking about, and I will share them with you. The first thing we're going to talk about is our data checkpoint. We are going to be reviewing last year's spring data, beginning of the year data locally in our district, as well as mid-year data, including our state and local assessments. Thank you, Mr. Bowley.
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that.
And jumping to slide 3, typically we have our annual achievement discussion with you and the community in November. However, as we all have heard on numerous occasions over the past almost 2 years now, it has been anything but typical. We did not have most of our state assessments in the 1920 school year, and the testing window for the 2021 school year was extended into this past fall for Pssas and Keystones, which extended the receipt of our results to, as you know, just the past couple of weeks we got our official results and prolonged us from being able to share them with you until now. Mr. Bogley, if you could go back. One more. Perfect. Student achievement is never tied to just one data point. Therefore, we would never expect the results of our state standardized test to solely speak to the achievement of our students. This year, this statement is especially true. And PDE has asked all LEAs to keep certain things in mind when interpreting, analyzing, and communicating the results of our state assessments. While the assessments did not change, student participation rates changed, instructional settings changed throughout the year, and as you all recall, we were virtual, we were hybrid, we were in person. Student engagement may have been compromised through all of those settings. Educators were asked to focus on prioritized standards suggested by the state. For all these reasons, PDE suggests that school districts do not compare this past year's results with previous years. We, however, are being very transparent with you this evening and are sharing the comparable data, but also communicating that data from the state assessment is only one piece or a snapshot used to make instructional decisions that allow all of our students to be the best that they can be to grow and achieve. You can see we use a variety of tools to house, gather, analyze our assessments. We make instructional decisions each and every day in our classrooms. Data points include Keystones, access testing, Pssas as one indicator, but also include benchmark assessments, local assessments, and of course those formative checks for understanding that take place each and every day in our classrooms as teachers are working closely with the students. We will talk about all of these this evening. So now let's look at our state assessment data first. The United States Department of Education requires certain assessments to take place at the state level as part of the Every Student Succeeds Act. Pennsylvania uses the Keystones, Pssas, and Access assessments to fulfill this requirement. The Keystone exams are one component on one pathway. One slide back, Mr. Bogley. On one pathway of the high school graduation requirement. These exams are end-of-course assessments designed to assess proficiency in the subject areas of algebra, literature, and biology. The Pennsylvania School System Assessment, or the Pssas, are assessments that provide an understanding of proficiency of the academic standards in English language arts, math, and science. These assessments identify what a student should know and be able to do at the varying grade levels from 3rd grade through 8th grade. And the Pennsylvania Department of Education uses the Access Test as the required instrument for the annual assessment of English language proficiency in our English language learners. We know that our students' participation in testing for school year 2021 was adversely affected by the pandemic and its impacts. We will compare our proficiency scores to the years past, but again, we know it is not comparable due to all the reasons that I have previously mentioned. A few other things to note as we are looking at this data. There is no data for school year 1920, as most state assessments were not given. Typically, we begin to analyze our subgroups and look for disparities. We address these in our school improvement plans. Being that we got our data late, we will now begin to do that. We will work in our DEI meetings. At first glance, the 2021 school year data shows more disparities across the county and state levels and questions about the impact of the pandemic. Will certain subgroups be more impacted than others? We again are planning to analyze this data further, especially comparing it to our local data, and we'll do so in our DEI meetings to start. You will also notice in this presentation, we included county comparisons. I need to be very clear that this is not all of Montgomery County. The scores included in the rest of Montgomery County are the 13 other school districts that also use Linkit as their assessment management system. The state has yet to release complete county comparisons. The school districts included, however, do provide a nice comparison to Colonial, and we feel it is reliable. I will also share with you the opt-out percentages we experience at each grade level, as well as the state proficiency levels. All right, Mr. Bogley. Our first assessment we are going to look at is our Keystones for literature. You will see that the Colonial School District came in at 80% proficient and advanced for the past year. You can, again, go back 2 years prior to the last time we had data, but we are not to compare. But it's there for us to look at. However, the next slide will show the rest of Montgomery County. Again, I have it there noted using Linkit. So those are the only 13 other school districts in our 22 school district county that are also using Linkit. The state assessment proficiency level was 58% in the area of literature. And we had about a 4% opt-out rate. Then we move on to Algebra Keystones. If you look at Colonial, we came in at 73% proficient. The rest of the county is at 43% proficient. The state average was 36% proficient. And we had about 5% of our students opt out. Biology Keystones. Colonial School District came in 71% proficient and advanced. The rest of Montgomery County came in at 56% proficient or advanced. The state was 45%. And again, we had an opt-out of about 6%. Moving on to Pssas. We are starting with our middle school. Our 8th grade English language arts came in at 70% proficient and advanced. The rest of the county was 66% proficient and advanced. The state came in at 53%. And our opt-outs at the middle school for 8th grade English language arts were about 21% of our students. Well, we can talk about that when we get to our tables, but certainly not as much. Yeah, but we are going to talk about that, but typically it is not at that level. And we did know that we were going to have a significant increase in our opting out this year. The state kind of made it a lot more easy to do so. Yes, we made arrangements for our virtual students to come
To
into
come in
our
and test,
schools.
but they weren't required to come in to test.
No, they could opt out
They
just
could
as much
opt
as
out.
anybody else could as well. But we did create safe spaces for them in the buildings to come in and test in a safe area. 8th grade math, 37% proficient and advanced. And then the rest of the county came in at 32% proficient and advanced. The state average was 22% proficient and advanced. And again, our opt-outs hovered around 20%, 21%. 8th grade science, Colonial School District in 8th grade, 63% proficient and advanced. The rest of the county was at 62% proficient and advanced. Our state assessment was 51% proficient and advanced. And again, our opt-outs around 20 to 21%. We chose not to present every single grade level to you. We can certainly get you that information. But we did choose to use 8th grade, 5th grade, 4th grade for science, 8th grade for science, and then 3rd grade for ELA and math as well. So the next thing we have is Pssas in 5th grade. Our ELAs were 59%. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong slide. Sorry. Gonna say it's not that low. We came in at 75% proficient and advanced in 5th grade for English language arts. Rest of the county came in at 67% proficient and advanced. The state was at 55% proficient and advanced, and we had about 14% of our students opt out in 5th grade. Now 5th grade math. We were 59% proficient and advanced. The rest of Montgomery County that uses Linkit was about 48% proficient and advanced. The state was at 36% proficient and advanced. And again, we're looking at 14% of our opt-outs. 4th grade science. Colonial School District came in at 87% proficient and advanced. The rest of the county also came in at 87% proficient and advanced. And the state average was about 76% proficient and advanced, with about 14% opting out in Colonial. 3rd grade Pssas for English language arts. We came in at 72% proficient and advanced. This county comparison was at 69% proficient or advanced. The state was at 58% proficient or advanced. And we had about 9% of our students opt out in 3rd grade. And our Pssas in 3rd grade for math, we're at 64% proficient and advanced. The rest of the county was 60%, and the state was at 47%. And again, that opt-out is around 9%. The state assessment, as I explained earlier, for our English language learners is called the access testing. This is a comparison for the composite scores of our access test, sometimes referred to as the WIDA test, for the past 4 years. Again, what you will notice, our school year 2021 yields the highest level of students testing at the entering or lowest level of English language acquisition. It is also important to note when we're looking at all sorts of data, our N count or our number of English language learners for each of these years. In the year of 17-18, we had about 123 Ls receiving services in the Colonial School District. In the year 18-19, we had about 103. In 19-20, we went down to 108 students. And then in the year of 2021, we had about 87 students. Now, that is not to say that we are receiving less and less students with English language needs. It does, however, speaks to the point that we've had plenty of students, and again, Mr. Psaki, jump in anytime, we've had plenty of students that have exited based on the criteria that the state provides us. We also have students that are in year 1 or 2 of monitoring that are not included in this data. So that's good news for our L's as well. Yes. At this time, do we have any questions for our curriculum team about the state assessment data? Again, I know it's hard not to compare to the years past, but PDE has advised us not to do that because of the pandemic.
Well, I don't have a question per se, but I do want to just acknowledge that outpacing the district or the county, or the school in the county is admirable and should be applauded, and is definitely consideration of the hard work that the teachers did in a very difficult setting to prepare students for the assessment, and not only to prepare them from an academic standpoint, but just from a social emotional space to take the test, for our students who are virtual to come in and feel comfortable, for our students who are hybrid. So kudos to all of you, our leaders and the staff, for getting it done in very, very challenging times. State assessment time is always stressful, so I know it was even more added to it, trying to administer state assessments during a global pandemic with half of your school in and half of your school out. So thank you.
And I know I was late, but with regard to the number of opt-outs, how is that similar or different from prior years? I'm sure you.
Yeah, great question. It was asked prior to. When we did say when we go to our building or small group, we were going to discuss that. As you saw, the middle school had a lot more opt-outs than, let's say, our 3rd grade. Those numbers have all increased drastically, but the state also made it a little bit more appealing and easier to opt out this year. Yeah.
All right. With the amount of opt-outs and things and these numbers, will that affect anything that we get rated on or funded for or anything like that?
Nope, it will not affect that in regards to that information, but as you'll learn when we go to our small group tables, we do use this information for each student coupled with our local data to really adjust our instruction this year in particular to see what sort of learning gaps any student did have so we can kind of fill those based on missed opportunities of learning. So that we don't have that data for all of our students, obviously.
No impact on funding whatsoever. The biggest challenge will be when they calculate the SPP, data will be used from 3 years ago with a cohort, several years later. And so therein lies the challenge, right? So it used to be year to year, which is always still different cohorts, but now it's going to be cohorts 2 to 3 years later.
Mhm.
So what's in a number, right? So we have to dig beyond the number and take a look at what's going on for 180 days and the quality teaching and learning that's happening on a daily basis. We've never been afraid of accountability or standardized tests, but I think we have to take a hard look at the fact is you have multiple cohorts that are years apart when they go to calculate these numbers, and they assign a school, whatever school it is, an 87 or a 92 or a 77. What does that really mean? And I think that's what our principals and staff are focused on. What's the day-to-day learning? When they put their school improvement plans together, I talked to Mrs. Carr the other day at Ridge Park, and she and her staff, and I can say it for all the elementary principals, they know every child and their team, their child study teams, and the teachers know where every student is. They know the ones that are on the bubble. They know the ones who are excelling, and they can talk about specifically what each child needs. And that's what I'm primarily concerned about, more than a number. I'd love for every number to be 95. It looks great for us as a report card. But even if it's 95, what's it mean day to day, right? So, and that's what this board is always, in my 5 years here, that's what this board has always been more worried about and concerned with, the day-to-day, daily quality teaching that's taking place. But it has no impact on funding whatsoever.
Any other questions? Hi.
Given what we've been through, but I'm really struck by the math across, and I'm sure you guys have looked at that. So I'm wondering, and it's similar across the county too, is there, you expect over the summer or will there be a rewriting countywide, statewide of curriculum to get these kids back? Like, how do we, these kids, that 5th grade number going into 6th grade math, they're not going to be ready based on the curriculum that we have now. So what are we doing about that?
And Mr. Merck has been having great conversations amongst his team about that. And I had said earlier, one point that we do use this information to is see where those gaps are. And we fill them as best we can, whether that is revising the curriculum, putting things in different orders, pacing, strengthening one area over another, and spending more time on that to try to lessen those gaps.
So what will you do? Will you try to identify specific areas where you see consistency in a gap, or like how are you going to do that?
So you'll hear when you go around to the small groups, and specifically Mr. Merck, you can get him on this one, but we just went through an exercise with our teachers the other day where they actually looked at our local assessment data, drilled down by standards, drilled down by skills, and he asked them, what have you taught? What haven't you taught? What does that tell you about that data? So it's those kind of conversations that change the instructional delivery in the classroom each day. Our summer school opportunities last year, and we'll continue this year, to focus on areas that we still need to address with certain students
But it seems like it's the whole grade
across the state.
across our district. Yeah,
And
it's not just a kid who checked out. It's the grade.
Yep.
So summer school isn't for the whole grade. I'm just wondering how you're going to tackle that.
It's difficult, but yes, there are the conversations that are going on across the state and across the county as well that Mr. Merck is aware of in his county meetings.
If I could add real quick, if it's okay. I know that there are, and I'm not like, programs are not a solution by any means. Teachers are obviously the most effective. I know that there are a lot of intervention or tier 2, tier 3 programs that can support that back mapping of standards for individual students as they need. What does that look like for us, or do we have something like that?
And do you want to speak to a little bit of that, the back mapping?
So you talk about specific programs we have in place now, or ones we're investigating or exploring?
I think, yeah, to the point that was just brought up about, it's a trend across grades, across schools, across the country. How are we being intentional about doing the back mapping? What prerequisite skills are missing? Where are those gaps? And then how are we filling them in? And is there, or has there been thought, and this might come up in the small groups, about how to go about that, moving forward? You're not going to go from A to Z in a month, but what's the strategic plan to fill those gaps and those prerequisite skills that are missing?
What we have in place right now are when teachers are working in their PLTs, their professional learning time. One of the things they're constantly examining is, okay, what have we covered? Where are our areas of weakness, or what are our strengths? And those are the conversations we have in our teams that Mrs. Gregorius were just talking about. And we take that information and we plan forward while also remediating. So let's think about the high school for a second. In their teams, for first semester, the last semester, they compiled information to pass on to this semester's teachers. And what they're doing, and this strategy they're using is something we're trying to use across all grade levels, is that when they're introducing new content, they're using prerequisite skills to introduce and showing the connections to, okay, this is what you looked at in prior grade levels and prior courses. All right, let's recall this. And then we take that recall and we introduce the new topics. That's the system we have in place right now, and we're continually to improve that.
Yeah, I think in addition, I would just add, the importance of, and I'm assuming this is being done, but the pre-assessment prior to even going into that unit or into that, into that next course or module or whatever it is in the curriculum, and just being really intentional about that. And I'm assuming that's happening, but just getting it out there.
And some of the other things, Ms. Marina, that you may hear when you go around to the small groups, so sorry if I'm taking this away from you guys, but at least at the K to 5, well, it was K to 3, and now it's going to go up to 4 to 5, we have been using additional resources to support our investigations math curriculum, The middle school, we have implemented tutoring for our students that are struggling, so we are putting in some of those resources and supports in addition to our back mapping with our curriculum. Sure. So it's time now for me to stop talking so much and for all of us to hear directly from the instructional leaders that are sitting at each of the tables. In addition to hearing about our state assessments, as I said, they will be sharing our local assessments and how we couple that information to really figure out what gaps are missing for our students and how we change our instructional delivery. At this time, we're going to welcome our board to, and guests for our board, to count off by fours. So we have 4 groups there. We're going to spend about 7 or 8 minutes at each group hearing about what K-3 is going to be sharing with you with local data and assessments, and more importantly, all those supports that we put into place day in and day out with our amazing teachers to support our students and their growth. So, Ms. Moore, do you want to start? 1. All right, at this time, we are going to continue our meeting with DEI updates from Mr. Gerald James.
Thank you, Mr. Gaitis. So our last DEI meeting was held on January 25th. During that meeting, we had our customary share-outs, which highlight some of the amazing things that are going on in our district. Our district continues to embrace the appreciation of diversity and supporting culturally responsive learning environment and enhancing our global mindset. As we embark on our future-ready comprehensive planning, we ask those in attendance at the meeting to look at our DEI mission and vision and how it correlates to our district mission and vision, and share their thoughts and recommendations. One of the things that we wanted to do at the end of the meeting was really talk about the concept of the foundation of respect. So we had an activity centered around the principle of respect, and it's fundamental learning. It's how it's fundamental to learning and growing together as an educational system and as a society. So our next DEI meeting is February the 23rd at 6 o'clock in our usual location of the Plymouth White Marsh High School cafeteria, and we welcome everyone to join us. So one of the things I want to talk about next is some of the things that are going on in our district. Our district continues to be really at the forefront of making sure that we are creating that global, that centralized belongingness for all of our students and staff. We have our No Place for Hate initiatives and activities that continue to occur. The BCA is hosting their 5th annual Unity Walk on February 24th. The rain date is February 28th. And in the spirit of unity, the BCA has asked that all schools in our district join in by walking in their respective buildings at a time that is convenient for each of them. So that email went out today to all of our building administrators, all our principals. For PW staff and all their students, they will be participating during their bonus block time in their time frame, and they'll be walking around the track, and then they'll come back and hear a speaker presentation. This year, we also had a very special project that was conducted by one of our high school juniors that is earning their Gold Award for Scouting. The student has done an exceptional job with this project, highlighting Africa's rich history, tradition, and culture. The project is being shared throughout the district in person and through video, and it's been tailored really for elementary, middle, and high school. The DVCEE Leadership Institute is also taking place on the week of on February 24th and 25th for our PW students and our middle school students. On our February 18th Professional Development Day, we will continue to work with the work that we've done with Courageous Conversations and culturally and linguistically responsive teaching and learning. For Courageous Conversations, we've done some foundational work. So what we're going to do on this professional development is really about the application. Our participants will get a chance to actually model some of what it looks like to have a courageous conversation or a listening circle. For culturally and linguistically responsive teaching and learning, teachers in K through 5 will get to look at some of the resources that we have purchased and materials that will be provided for them in their classrooms, and how it's going to enhance culturally responsive pedagogy in their learning environments. One of the other things that I want to touch base on was how our recruitment efforts So over the next several weeks and months, I'll be partnering with my colleagues in HR. We'll be attending several job fairs that are being provided by the MCIU. So we're continuing to look for qualified staff. So again, that's and in attendance to those job fairs. Also, we welcome you as a community to look out, and if you have recommendations, please recommend them to our district. We're really doing great things. And one of the things that I wanted to highlight when I share with people is the support that they have in our district from our administrators, from our school board. That is something that obviously, unfortunately, many districts may not be able to have, but we have it here. And that's one of the selling points that I want to make sure that all of the candidates that we reach out to know about the great things that's happening in Colonial. And that's all. Any questions? All right. Thank you, Ms. Grigatis.
Certainly. The next thing that we have on our agenda is a conference request form for the board to consider. Ms. Beth Lynch is a college counselor at PW. She has been selected to attend University of Connecticut's College Counselor Forum, and all expenses are paid by UConn. And she will get to have the opportunity to meet the leadership team, attend panels and presentations on behalf of our students, and be able to speak to our students more openly about all of the experiences that UConn could provide. So we will be asking for your approval. Any questions about the conference? Great. And then the last thing on our agenda this evening, which is very fitting, Ms. Lester has been working on our 2020-2021 academic report. Again, typically this is something that is out earlier in the year, but as we just discussed, many of our data points were not available until just recently. So Jess is going to walk us through and is sending around hard copies of the academic report for our consideration and suggestions.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for allowing me a few minutes of your time to share sort of a newer looking version of our academic report. This is a little bit of a different presentation than you may have seen in the past, so I just wanted to run it past the committee and get any feedback that you might have. I used a platform called Infogram to create the document, which we will print, but this can also live on our website, and it's more of an interactive presentation. So like if you hover over the bars, you'll get the numbers for the different graphs, and they kind of zoom in and out. And we have the ability to embed links in this document and, just make it a little bit more interactive. So a lot of the information that was shared tonight is in this report in a much more, kind of condensed format. And I tried to retain a lot of the elements that we had in our previous reports. There's just not as many written articles or photographs. So interested to know what you think of this new presentation and whether or not you'd like to see any of the elements of the old one come back. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I was thinking that when I was looking at it, so I can certainly bump those up. The photocopies were not very great. I apologize for the poor quality there. I can send everybody the link to this online version too, if that's easier to review it that way. Okay, great. All right, well, I don't want to take up much more time, but you can certainly email me too if you have time to look over it and you want to share any feedback that you have. I'm glad to hear it. So thank you. Yes. Yes, we mail it to all the district residents. Yep.
Ms. Clay, that concludes our presentation for the evening.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment at this time?
None at this time.
Okay, then this meeting's adjourned. Thank you.